All right, man. That's good. You got like 3 years left. That's just in
Rough
time for
life.
the DLC, I'm sure.
Rough life.
Just went live. We're going to wait for a minute for the people to get in here, so.
All right.
I'll be honest, I'm going to try to play Red Dead Redemption 2 again at some point, but like I got it, I think opening night, and I played it, and the shooting controls pissed me off so much that I just like stopped playing it one day and I never started again. I've heard that they've gotten a lot better, / there are like settings you can do to make it feel smoother, but I was just like, I can't do this for 50 hours.
Yeah, I thought Red Dead Redemption 2, the gameplay, like combat and whatnot, was whatever. But just everything else, just easily like one of the best games I've ever played.
Oh, the depth. Oh my god, the depth.
Well, just
not just the depth, high quality depth.
And the concept of like, oh, I walked into this town 2 days ago and that building wasn't there. And like just little shit like that. Like you'll gradually, the more you like progress through, you just see like this town building up. And like, I don't know, it's crazy. The care they put into it. I can't wait for the next Rockstar game.
Let's polish.
Connor, where are you at with Elden Ring? Did you actually like? I know you started it again. Did you play it much?
I just beat the second villain who had like the dragon head for whatever that was. I did him, so I'm in whatever the area after Stormvale is. I did that, but my build, like I looked up like optimized builds because I'll be honest, I'm not trying to like slog through it again. So my guy's like, even though he's a similar level, my guy's way better than my first build was. Way more effective, so it's working out.
I did appreciate that it was a game that you can like take your time and adventure like what we did most of the time, or just like turn down a random corner. But there's also pretty easy ways to just like level up quickly if that's what you truly care about.
Yeah, I'm just trying not to get like destroyed by everything I come across. Like I don't, I recognize I'm probably never going to actually beat the game, but I just want to like be able to explore and have fun without like dying every 10 seconds, which is what was happening to begin with. All right, let me see if anyone isn't here. We got P-Town, we got Hero. I need one comment in the chat room, and then we're going to get started. So let me know, boys.
I don't watch on desktop very often. I can see that we have 3 viewers, but I can't tell. I can't click on that and like figure out who they are. How do I do this on desktop? How do I tell who's watching?
That's above my pay grade. I don't ever do it on mobile.
Yeah, I was worried you'd say that.
Yeah.
Well, we're about to get another viewer, boys.
Let's go, baby!
Half the viewers are gonna be me.
Oh, I really should be watching this on my own stream instead of BLN. Well, listen, I mean, I'll keep talking about Elden Ring if no one wants to commentate. So I'm like, I also did the castle to the south of Limgrave that we were talking about that had like the lion boss and all that. I think we worked on that together when we were playing it, and I like easily beat the boss this time, which is crazy because like he's the guy I was stuck on like when I stopped playing initially. I beat him like the second go. I was like, all right, this is a lot better.
No, that was easily the best part of the game where you're just like, all right, I've been grinding this guy forever. I stepped away for 2 hours, figured out my shit a little bit, and now I'm just tanking him.
It's pretty great. All right, I've lost my war of attrition. Ladies and gentlemen, hello, welcome to Better League Network, and more importantly, hello and welcome to episode 37 of the BetterCast. This is now my 8th cycle doing these podcasts, and Morty's as well, actually, who we'll get to in a second. But, of course, it is the Seattle Boys here once again to bless you with our voices. Again, I'm the humble host, Connor Rice, joined by Lucky and Morty. Boys, how we doing?
Doing great. Let's do it.
Spectacular evening, gentlemen.
Absolutely spectacular. And as we enter Madden 24, I think we're in the waning moments of the final Better League preseason tournament game. From what I could tell, Allen was winning that pretty decisively. I don't know if something's changed since I last checked in on that. There we go, here in Austin with the "Let's go, baby!" Let's go, Hero. But yeah, I mean, if any of you, it's like October, if any of you have watched one of these more recent iterations of the BetterCast, you probably know the format by now. About a week ago, I sent out a Google poll letting everyone rank everyone in each division 1 through 4, as well as send who they thought would be the most disappointing user of the season, the breakout user of the season, as well as of course predict their Super Bowl champions, and we will get to every single one of those results. I guess before we get to, it's going to be the AFC East first as always. Before we get to the AFC East first, Lucky, Morty, are there any divisions, whether it's yourselves, whether it's others, like, are there any where you're especially interested to see what these results look like? Any where you maybe don't know what's coming?
Oh God, panic.
I mean, of course, the AFC North is quite spicy, right? So that one was pretty tough with all those great users there. But yeah, otherwise, I feel like there's some quality balance throughout the general league overall.
Absolutely.
Right, the panic was I did not have the. I'm just pulling up the graphic from a while back. Here we go. I just wanted to pull up the divisions again. It's been a while since I actually looked at this. But yeah, no, okay, I'm with Morty. The AFC North is going to be just an absolutely fascinating division. I think that really shook out in a way that wasn't even just. Obviously, we'll get into specific divisions a little bit later. But I'm fascinated for the matchups that we're going to see there, the specific users that ended up amongst each other.
Yeah, very interesting division. Obviously, 3 all-time greats in Cody, Austin, the Hootie, and then Wozy, who, has shown friskiness throughout his Better League career and who is coming in talking hash shit. I don't know if y'all have seen him, in the Slack over the last month. He's confident. He feels like he can compete with all these guys. And honestly, I'll take that NBA over I'm just happy to be here and, get my 4th place selection or 4th place finish every year. We need some of that spice coming from the presumptive 4th place finisher. So love to see that. And as we move forward, yes, thank you for the party blob. This is going to be the way I start every BetterCast from now on, is with this party blob. We move on to these beautiful Samoan created graphics. And here is the AFC East consensus, boys. Now, again, if this is your first time for one of these revamped BetterCasts, to kind of show you what we're looking at here, what you can see, those numbers to the left are your kind of league average placements. So obviously the closer to 1 you are, the higher the league thinks of you, and then obviously the closer to 4, you can put that in reverse. This is Little Alex's Bills, Matt's Jets, Boz's Patriots, and Nico's Dolphins. We already have a tie here, but to go through all the results, Little Alex finished, I wouldn't say as decisively in first place as I would have expected, but still, a pretty strong first place, average 1.46. Matt coming in just behind him, average 1.96, and then Boz and Nico tied for 3rd at 3.23. Just to give a little teaser, this is not the only tie we had in this poll, so very excited to, kind of keep going with that as it progresses. But I had the consensus. Lucky had the consensus. Morty deviating, well, not just a little bit. He flipped 1, 2, and 3, 4. Had Matt, Little, Nico, and Boz in that order. Morty, since you kind of deviated here, I want to go with you first. How do you see this league breaking out, and why did you go with the rationale that you did?
Yeah, well, all I've heard about Matt is that he dominated the last season, made it to the playoffs, and then he was doing really great in preseason tournament, from what I recall. At least had some type of deep run. And I think just that roster is pretty loaded to a degree. Not that the Bills and the Dolphins aren't either, but I don't know. I suppose with Little Alex coming from outside the league back in, kind of a toss-up there. And I'm generally unfamiliar with to the degree he's been playing the game. And, Nico's got the speed. He knows the Dolphins. But I don't know. I feel like Nico. It's a tough for me one because having been out of the league. I have to reset a lot of my expectations for a lot of people not having seen what most of 23 was about. I'm generally unfamiliar with Boz. I think it was the Vikings at one point, but I think he'll be ready to compete with the Patriots. But just roster wise, I don't know. I always liked the Jets. I had them sneaky high on my list, and with a little bit of hype around Matt, I kind of threw him up there.
Yeah, Boz was the Vikings 3 cycles ago, can confirm. That was kind of the peak of his Better League career so far as he made the NFC Championship. Came relatively close. He was 2 touchdowns away from making the Super Bowl, but hasn't done a ton since then. Lucky, you and I agreed with the league consensus here. How do you have this division shaken out?
Yeah, I think this is Honestly, I'm pretty surprised that 3 and 4 ended up as close / tied as they are. I think it's pretty clear to me that this is Little Alex's division to lose. I do believe in this Jets roster. I do think it's a good team to start with. And I think Matt obviously has improved year over year. And if any one of these cycles, he could turn into a guy who makes the playoffs 4 to 5 times, and it wouldn't surprise me. But I don't think with any confidence I can say that he's going to be better than Little Alex this year. That's just a gigantic. That would be a huge leap to be able to take, especially considering Little Alex is starting with such a good roster in his own right. So that was a pretty easy one for me, putting Little up at the top. Yeah, the more interesting conversation for me is Nico versus Boz. And I mean, that Patriots roster is rough. There's no two ways about it. That's not a good team to start with. There's a reason. I'm pretty sure it was the average lowest team on everybody's selection list this year because it just sucks. There's not a lot to build with, either older players or younger. So it's not a fun one to use. And Nico's obviously coming out. It's not just with his favorite team, but with one of the best Madden teams out there. That the Dolphins were on the other end of the spectrum. They were one of the top teams on everybody's list. They've got speed. They've got ability players. They got a lot going on. But all that being said, Boz, though not a world beater, has shown that he has stick skills, and Nico has struggled to do the same, to put it kindly. So I am not sold that we're going to really see these two users be as close as the consensus seems to be.
Yeah, I mean, this is absolutely the highest that Nico has ever finished in one of these preseason polls. He's usually, more like the league's consensus 4th place. And yeah, I mean, there was it's a very interesting dichotomy here between Boz and Nico, like you were saying, because Boz, although he had a very solid Madden 21 and then made a couple runs Madden 22. I remember he played me in the playoffs once. I believe may have pushed for a wildcard spot one other time. Really did not do much at all in Madden 23. And I think my concern with Boz is less the roster, even though you're 100% right. Lucky there's a massive gap between the Patriots and the Dolphins rosters from a Madden perspective. It's more like how much he cares, right? Because he is very, I think if a user came around in the wait list that he, liked personally, I think he would be very happy to just give up the Patriots to that user and just, kind of chill and wait on the sidelines. He's not one of those guys who, is going to grind Madden-wise day in and day out and really lock in and really try to make that Super Bowl push. I think he's kind of just happy to be here and happy to hang with the fellas. So that is maybe some rationale for why you put. I mean, I like you can see right there, I still had Boz in 3rd. Yeah. And I felt pretty good about it, but that is maybe some rationale. As far as the 1-2, yeah, I think the fact that Little Alex wasn't more of a consensus number 1 pick is maybe it's either the league forgetting how good he is, which is possible, we haven't seen him in a while, or it's maybe people getting a little too hyped about Matt's, cycle-to-cycle progression, which, yes, is a very real thing. He's gone from, a doormat in Madden 21, frisky user Madden 22, playoff user, a true playoff user in Madden 23, who got a playoff win and nearly, I believe, made a conference championship game at one point. So he's made that progression, but it's a big ask, like he said, to say, I want you to take another leap and suddenly be as good or better than Little Alex, who is one of the best regular season users we've ever seen, frankly, in this league. Throughout cycles, he always dominates, at the very least in the regular season. So, that's tough. But with the exception of, kind of the spread between Little Alex and Matt, and then between Boz and Nico, I agree with the general consensus. And then, of course, I can't completely discredit Matt's chances maybe of winning the division at some point. I just wouldn't bet on it. But over the course of 6 seasons, 7 seasons, why not? Rogers Magic, baby. No gunslinger this year, but he still has that Slinger 1. So we'll see if he can do something. And we'll see if Matt continues to kind of find himself on that upward trend. We move now. I did not go straight AFC to NFC. We're kind of mixing it up this year. We are now doing the NFC East, and this is very changing it up, right?
I love this. I've secretly wanted this since the beginning. I think I'm just alphabetical.
I'm open to requests, baby. Let me know next time. It is Alex's Cowboys 1.42. It is very close between 2, 3, and 4 here. Justin's Commanders 2.69. Cam's Giants 2.8 flat. And then Jesse's Philadelphia Eagles 2.96. And we were all over the board in terms of our selections here, so this will be a very interesting conversation. I didn't have the league consensus, but I had 2 and 3 flipped. I had Alex, Cam, Justin, Jesse in that order. Lucky also had Alex on top, and then Justin, Jesse, Cam in that order. Morty going the other way, disagreeing with me, disagreeing with the league, disagreeing with Lucky, had Jesse all the way at number 1, which I'm very interested to hear about. Then Alex, then Justin, then Cam. Lucky, we'll start with you this time. How do you see this division breaking out?
Yeah, I'm fascinated with what Morty's got going on over there for the second division in a row, but we'll get to him in a bit, I guess. I don't see Alex losing this division, at least not season 1. Justin, I think, has a chance to make a run at the division just because I've been in his division a couple times now, and he just finds a way. Whether you want to call it like Teely luck or the Teely effect, or if you want to call it dumb luck, or if you just think he's good, he finds a way to compete every single cycle.
Yeah.
Every now and again, he gets distracted by females, and that takes him away a little bit. But when he's on his game, he always competes. And I'm a big fan of this Washington Commanders team. I think the gap between Alex and Justin for this first season is smaller than that consensus might indicate. And I do think that while Alex, because he just has an even better team, and that most people would agree, an even better team than the Commanders, I think he also just has the stick skills to beat Justin. Jesse obviously has the best team in the league. I feel like this, more so than any other cycle, I feel like this cycle, the Eagles were the most consensus number 1 team compared to, maybe not as far as teams list goes, but just they were the best team. There was not really much debate about it.
Yeah.
And I can't quite remember a cycle with such a unanimous number 1 team, such as this. And Jesse getting them. Jesse is a very solid user in his own right. He he feels streaky, a little hot and cold sometimes. So I feel like sometimes with a good team, he might go 5-12, and sometimes he might go 10-11 wins and go on a run into the playoffs. But it's tough to know really what you're going to get on any given season, and that makes it difficult for me to rate him much higher than 3rd. And I feel like Cam is kind of the same as well, because I think a lot of time Cam just wants to have fun, which I can't fault anybody for. But when you're just trying to have fun, I don't always believe that you're going to do what it takes to try to win as much as you can. And that's fine. We're all here for our own reasons, and I've said that many times. But it does make it difficult for me to put him above somebody like Alex and Justin, who I believe are going to come out and try to win every week and have really good teams in their own rights. The Giants also suck. I would not want to be the Giants. So that plays into this as well.
Yeah,
that's how I feel about this one.
Easily the worst roster of the 4, in my opinion, in New York. Morty, you and I have almost the exact inverse placement, so I'm very curious to hear what you think about this one.
Yeah, have you guys seen that Eagles roster?
What?
Yeah. It's
pretty
quite
good.
Dominant. I just feel like I 100% agree with pretty much everything Lucky said, but I do still see some logic in my organization there, I suppose. Mostly because, like you said, when Jesse is kind of locked in, I think he might have that new cycle energy, and I do think he'll be locked in, and I really think that team's primed for a fast start, especially with Jalen Hurts. Like, I think is he X Factor, man? Like, that's crazy. I mean, really good player, and I feel like I think he could do some damage with him if he does things right, especially set up long term as well. I've never been a big Cowboys fan. I don't even think I peeked at their roster, but they are a sneaky great team. And, I do think Alex has all the stick skills to get the job done there. But I really think it'll be Alex and Jesse kind of battling it out, roster, definitely kind of propping them up quite a bit. But I just, in terms of over Washington and New York, I do think it's just the two dominant teams up top there with the Eagles and Cowboys. I think Justin would be up there and competitive, but very limited with his quarterback that he has on his roster. Maybe he'll make some moves. He's got some pieces, like you never know. And then, yeah, similar with Cam. I mean, I do think there's some sneaky good pieces on that Giants team, but probably not enough to propel him beyond the other three at this point. But, ultimately we never know. I've recall in previous cycles, people get hot starts and maybe that this cycle jives with him a little more for whatever reason. But I felt confident enough in terms of just the base rosters and what people are starting with to kind of put Jesse at the top there, mostly because I know Alex has been competitive lately, but I'm not sure exactly if his pure stick skills are as dominant as that.
Yeah, I think the Giants roster for Cam is, even though I mentioned that probably in a vacuum it's probably the worst of the four, I still think that it's a sneaky good fit for him in terms of, run first, try to kind of clog up the middle on defense. They definitely have the pieces to do that, with Saquon first and foremost. Just going top to bottom from my perspective, Alex, I feel real good about winning this division. Real good. And that's not to say he's going to win it every single season. You could very easily see really any of these three users, I would say especially Justin, but you can see any of the three users, reach up and take it at some point. But if we're talking just season one, based on what we saw, Madden 23 and roster-wise, kind of a combination of those two factors going to Madden 24, feel very, very good about Alex. I was pretty... I discredited a lot of his Madden 21 and Madden 22, and I kind of disrespected him as a user for a while just because I was just kind of confused about what I was seeing from him. I thought he was too up and down game to game, even within games. I thought he would just make some very just odd game management decisions that hindered him, kept him in kind of that good tier instead of what I thought could be a great or even elite tier. But Madden 23, man, other than Warren, who was a pretty gigantic hurdle for any of us to climb. He was really, really dominant within that conference. Madden 23, made two straight conference championship berths. Pretty much dominated Dan in their head-to-head. Even though Dan was able to get the last laugh in that Week 18 game, pretty much dominated Dan at that head-to-head. So that kind of showed me what I needed to see. I don't know if Alex is a Super Bowl contender, but I definitely think he's taken that step back towards relevancy, and I can't necessarily say the same about the other three guys. As far as 2, 3, 4, extremely close. I definitely agree with the league consensus where in that you really could rank them in any order 2 through 4, and I couldn't really disagree with you. The only reason I put Cam number 2 is because I have personally played Cam twice, and he was real frustrating to go against. Real frustrating. It really seems like he's kind of figured something out earlier than, a lot of quote unquote better users that I played against. He was very, very solid on both sides of the ball. So I just kind of gave him purely based on my own experiences against him. I gave him that bump over Justin over Jesse. And then I don't know, Jesse last, I do feel kind of foolish with that Eagles roster, putting him fourth, but we don't know what he's going to do with that roster before week 1. I keep trying to say it, the GMing is interesting sometimes. And I know, I've heard through the grapevine that he's already trying to trade some key pieces away. So we'll see if that Eagles roster looks quite as dominant by week 1 and then moving forward here. But 2 through 4 in any order does not really baffle me whatsoever. And then I again have Alex with a pretty clear number 1, but Morty, I respect your take. Obviously that Eagles roster is insanely dominant. So if you believe in kind of team over scheme, carrying Jesse there, with of course Jesse being a frisky scheme user in his own right, I don't hate that whatsoever. Any more takes on this division, or should we move on?
Yeah, especially just earlier in the cycle, I feel like it can be somewhat of a team over scheme situation.
Sure.
I just want to add on a quick caveat, kind of league-wide. I'm fascinated to see how different every single roster looks in 1 week, because a lot of the addicts of this league have already traded half their teams. Maybe people in this chat themselves have done it, but I'm just saying, a week from now, who knows what the best team is going to look like.
Maybe people in this Discord are getting a little addicted to their... I haven't done anything too crazy, to be honest with you. But fun division, excuse me. Very excited to see how it shakes out. And we know there's going to be some toxicity in the chat from all four of these users moving forward. Moving on to the AFC North. This is the one that everyone wanted to see, and here is another tie, ladies and gentlemen, which is kind of befitting, in my opinion, of this division. We have Austin's Cincinnati Bengals coming in just at number one with the 1.8 average, and then a tie between Hootie's Browns, Cody's Ravens, 2.11 each, and then way down below, sorry, Wozy, it was to be expected here, Wozy's Pittsburgh Steelers, 3.96. Now, we all have Wozy last. So go ahead.
Real quick, I just want to ask, in that one that didn't put Wozy last, which team was fourth? Do you know off the top of your head?
Hootie was fourth.
It was Hootie in that one? Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And I would expose people. I genuinely don't remember who did that, so maybe that'll go in the Slack later. But we all have Wozy fourth. You, me, and us three. No big surprise there. We all disagree in terms of the top three, I suppose, which isn't too surprising. I have Cody, Hootie, Austin in that order. Lucky has Austin, Cody, Hootie, and then Morty has Austin, Hootie, Cody. Morty, you can go first this time. Obviously, we don't know shit about how this division is going to go, but why'd you have the rankings that you did?
Yeah, so Austin with Burrow and Jamar Chase, like, that's crazy, man. He's got Higgins too. Higgins the beast. Like, I think he's just primed to like dominate the first like 3 seasons of this league. Like, unfortunately, that defense, it's got some holes, but like, you set up long term too. It's not just like a 1-year thing. Like, that team is rocked and ready to go in a lot of aspects. And I've played Austin quite a bit, and I'm sure he was dominating BL last cycle too. But it kind of depends on how bought into the game he is. And I think early in the cycle, he's definitely very, very much up there in terms of how much he's competing hard. And I do think he's just ready to go with that Bengals team. Dehooty's an absolute monster. He's got a mobile QB, and the Browns probably right up there in terms of a stacked roster, ready to go. Maybe even slightly more so on the defensive side, and some other key pieces, especially running back. But it was real tough to kind of grade those top three. Ultimately, I have Cody third because I've never really seen him with like a mobile quarterback to that degree. And I see Cody as like a somewhat of a pocket passer, not that he's never like Houdini behind the line of scrimmage, but I think he's got it in him. But I do think it'll take a bit of an adjustment for him to truly maximize Lamar, because that the receiver group's not great other than Mark Andrews, and there's not much of a pass rush on that team. There's definitely some holes on that team, and I do feel like roster-wise, it's just not up to par like the Bengals and the Browns. So, I do think he can pull it off with just some Lamar magic, but ultimately, I think it's kind of like slotted into third in terms of how I see it. And the Steelers are a great team. They got some sneaky, high-quality pieces, but ultimately, I don't think Wozy with the stick skills is able to completely compete with the top 3 users, because I would consider this the division of death for this cycle, at least in terms of those top 3, and they're just far and above where Wozy's at right now. I mean, I do think, like you were saying, that that energy, that drive to kind of come into the cycle strong, he's got that. So I think he'll be he won't be too far behind. But I do think the top 3 users in that order are beyond dominant. And I wouldn't be surprised if the top 3 users here all squeak into the playoffs.
Just say a quick question before we get to Lucky. I mean, you mentioned the some pieces that the Steelers have from a roster perspective, and I don't disagree with that. But like, would you take the Steelers roster over any of the other 3 in this division? Because I wouldn't personally.
No, I wouldn't. I would say, they get some pieces, but they're kind of on the older side to a degree, I suppose. But they're there. But yeah. Compared to the other three, no.
It's just, yeah, I say that just because it's going to be a mountain to climb within the division. Lucky, what are your thoughts on this one?
For me personally, it was obviously you could put these three any order you want, and it wouldn't be wrong. I think for me personally, it was between Austin and Cody for season one. Tahuti was very thin margin behind the two of them, and it was kind of a toss up between Cody and Austin. I think I went with Austin mostly just because, kind of like what Morty said, it's just such a strong offense that on day one, I think that Austin has a good sense of what he wants to do with all that talent and all those playmakers, and it's going to be tough to stop him. But I mean, also Lamar Jackson is the great equalizer, and I think Cody's going to have a lot of fun. Cody was very excited, obviously, to get, I think, his number one team. And Cody putting any AFC North team above the Bengals is always going to be a big deal for him. So he's got to be excited to use that team.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, what is there to be said? It's three of the great users in the history of the league. Like, it's going to be a battle every season. Any one of them could win, and it's almost going to be interesting seeing how many times these guys can go undefeated outside of the division, only to go like 3-3 inside the division, because whatever happens. So I'm fascinated. This is going to be a lot of fun to watch the entire cycle. Wozy, I hope you're here to battle. I hope you're not judging your success this cycle based off wins and losses. And I don't know. There's not a whole lot for me to say other than this is just going to be a fucking bloodbath.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, even within as stacked of a league as we have, it's not very often where you have, 6 games every season within a certain division that are absolute must-see appointment viewing for not just the rest of the division, but for the entire league. And that's what we've got here with Cody, Austin, and Tahuti doing battle. For me, the very simple reason I have Cody at number one is I have been kind of interested really all throughout his BL career as a player. We really haven't seen anyone fully. Well, I shouldn't say fully unlock Lamar Jackson because, CMAX had a good season with him, and then little Alex had a couple of very solid seasons with him. Unfortunately, none of those ended in rings, but had a couple very solid seasons with him. I think Cody with Lamar Jackson, especially in this Madden where it looks like QB mobility is, maybe not quite to Madden 20 extent, but it looks like it's kind of back. I think Cody with Lamar Jackson is going to be absolutely hellacious to deal with. And I know Austin and Tahuti, they're going to have their own schemes on defense. They're going to try to come up with unique ways to contain Lamar Jackson, but I pity anyone who goes up against Cody on a given day because I know it's going to come up with just a very, very solid scheme to maximize Lamar Jackson, to maximize the weapons he has, Mark Andrews, etc., maximize the weapons he has on offense and really get that Baltimore Ravens offense fully unlocked. And who knows, maybe we'll finally see Lamar Jackson win his first Better League ring, which to me is absolutely wild that he hasn't won one yet. As far as the rest of the division goes, Tahuti, after being in a division with him all year, I have to give him his full respect. I don't think there is a smarter Madden player in this league than Tahuti in terms of in-game adjustments, in terms of just purely as a I won't say GM, but purely as a game-to-game coach scheme-wise, he is just absolutely incredible, and I fully believe that he'll maximize that Browns roster. Do I have them over the Saints? Over the Ravens? Obviously not, but I think he's going to have a very, very solid season in cycle. And then Austin's Bengals third. Again, like Lucky said, like Morty said, this is a division where you could have these guys ranked 1 through 3 in any order, and it really wouldn't be super disrespectful to anyone. I just had Austin's Bengals at number 3, not out of discredit to Austin, but because I think Cody with the Ravens, and then from my experiences with Tahuti from last cycle, I have those two as two of the preeminent dominant forces in the league going in Madden 24. We'll see. Of course, I'll say that, and then Austin might win 3-4 rings this cycle, and it wouldn't particularly surprise me. Wozy, he is a frisky user. I do not think he'll get swept by these other 3 users all the way throughout the cycle. He'll kind of nip nip them in the bud, every now and then, maybe take one from one of the other three users. But if we're talking game to game consistency, season to season consistency, I don't see it compared to the other three. I don't see him ever finishing above fourth. And I know that's going to come as, disrespectful, and I'm sure that'll kind of add fuel to his fire. It's just, even if he does beat Austin or Cody or Dahoudi once this season, like, it's about the game to game consistency if you want me to pick you above any of them from a divisional perspective, and I just don't see it. We'll see. Maybe this is a cycle. We will see. It's a tall ask, certainly. Moving on now, we have the NFC North as I real quick. Oh no, this is my division. I know who's in here. It is Heroes Packers, CMAS's Bears, my Vikings, Gamble's Detroit Lions. Lucky and I, as well as the league, all have the same order: Hero, then CMAS, then myself, then Gamble. Morty has CMAS finishing above Hero, which I find interesting. But Lucky, we will start with you. How do you see this division breaking out? Lucky,
you on mute?
Yeah, you're good now. Oh, it's more. Yeah, he's on mute, I think.
Hi, sorry.
There you
yeah,
go.
I muted myself. My bad.
No worries.
No, I feel like you and I kind of went chop with a lot of these, and Morty's just over here like, yeah, let's make some content. Hero, I think, has proven himself that he deserves the benefit of the doubt any season. There's maybe a handful of users that we have a discussion with, but you could give Hero at this point any team in the league, and within reason, I would think he's probably going to win his division in the first season. He has proven to us over the last two cycles that he is one of the best users in the history of Better League, and I don't think that that's a controversial thing to say anymore. There was definitely I think this Madden 23 was a prove it year. He obviously had that big breakout in 22, and it kind of came from nowhere. Like, he'd been good, but he'd never been great. And in Madden 23, he won Super Bowls. Not only he won Super Bowls with two different teams in one cycle. I don't think we've ever seen anybody do that. And so I think that's just like a fascinating thing. So yeah, for me, it was a no doubter. Putting Hero up at number one. CMAS himself in his own right has proven to be a very good team builder and a very strong user. And regular season wise, he always competes and he always finishes strong. He needs to get over the hump in the playoffs if he wants to take that next step. That's not really that's not very controversial. That's just the facts. But CMS, again, was a pretty solid number two there. I gotta be honest, this whole thing was very easy for me. In some divisions, I felt like I had to think for a few minutes. Do I really think that these two could go either way? But for this one, it was pretty easy for me to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Connor, I think you have the capability of any season going on that run. But if we're talking season over season, and especially, I don't think the Vikings I would probably put at number 4 in terms of starting rosters. Maybe the Bears are worse, but I don't like this Vikings roster at all. So that also hurts you quite a bit. And then who even is the Lions? Oh, Gamble.
Yeah.
I do like the Gamble. I do like the Lions roster a lot. I think they have some really fun weapons to play with on day one, both on offense and defense. I would have loved to actually end up with the Lions, but Gamble also kind of just doesn't really have that resume of consistent expertise. It feels like every season or so, maybe 5 or 6 times a cycle, he'll get that really big win, and you think, oh, wow, maybe he does have the ability to take that next step. But then he never seems to expand upon that and use that as a stepping stone to bigger things. It feels like he gets those big wins, and then he kind of comes back down to 5 to 7 wins, 5 to 8 wins. He usually always falls somewhere in that range. He's never bad, but he's never really a playoff contender. So it's tough for me to put him too high there. But yeah, in general, I felt like this division was fairly 1, 2, 3, 4. It was kind of an easy one for me.
I agree with that. Real quick, Morty, before we get to you, Justin asking, did you do NFC East yet? Yes, and we all put you last. Morty, what are your thoughts on this division?
Boom.
Yeah, so I remember the last time Todd O'Connor was in Chicago, and I feel like it went pretty well. I don't think CMAS won the Super Bowl or anything, but I feel like that was his, like, I want to say he must have made multiple NFC championships, or maybe I'm misremembering that. I don't know. But I feel like he was pretty far up there with Tua and the Bears those times, or maybe it was Tua first season. I don't remember. But yeah, I think Justin Fields is just an animal. I don't think he got the overall that CMAS was probably hoping for, and I do think a good scheme around him, and I know CMAS is a good user. I'm sure he'll make some deals to bring in some talent to kind of put his plan in place. But I completely agree with everything you guys have said about Hero, and he's definitely got a really great roster in Green Bay. But Jordan Love is, like, I'm not sure if that's the right quarterback to get him over the hump season one. Maybe he just doesn't have like much of a true impact offensive weapon, at least not in terms of day one out of the box. Christian Watkins is a great deep threat. If you're going to pound it with Aaron Jones, there's not too much there offensively, but I do think defensively it'll be a problem for anyone who plays him. Connor, I think I caught a game or two of yours. Is Cousins? I'm not sure what the deal with Cousins. I know at one point you said Cousins would not be taking a snap for you.
I said that, and then I played a game with Jaron Hall, and yes, Cousins will be taking snaps.
Okay. See, if I knew that, I might have put you a little higher, but I thought you were going to stick to that. But there's some great pieces there. I mean, you can feed Jefferson, maybe Hawkinson a bit, but yeah, I think there are some good pieces all around, but it's kind of like a toss up to some degrees. I could see the top three of these divisions kind of flipping and flopping over the cycles, but in terms of starting out, and I think it could play out like this. I'm generally unfamiliar with what Detroit's going on, but I'm familiar with Gamble. I know he'll find the things he really likes and find his grooves. But he's got some great pieces. I think he could turn Jamar Gibbs into an absolute animal, so watch out for that. But while he's a rookie, I think the rest of the people in the division will have him mostly contained.
Sorry, did you cut out or were you done?
I was done.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Cool. Yeah, no, I'm really excited to. Sorry about that. Really excited to participate in this division. I think for me, Hero was the very clear number one. I think it is. I think it's probably fair to say at this point that he is the second best, second greatest, however you want to put it, user in Better League history.
Was he good again during the reset? He was good in the reset too.
It's pretty damn good in the reset. I won't lie to you, but
I don't know anything. I'm playing blind.
It's all good. We'll do this again next season.
Just pull up your browser, go to betterleaguecfm.com/history/super-bowl-history. Learn everything you need to know about this reboot.
History, Super Bowl history.
Make sure you take a look at the runner-up in the Madden 23 reboot, season 44. That's an important one. Remember that one. Sorry, go ahead, Connor.
There's a highlight video and everything.
All right, man. That's great.
Welcome back to the league, Morty. Let's go, baby. I think
we're gonna learn you some things.
I think Hero is the very clear number one. Like I said, second best, second greatest user in Better League history at this point. I think a lot of people were kind of wondering, and even in my opinion, discrediting Hero. Going into the Madden 23 cycle, saying that Madden 22 was a fluke brought on by an incredibly dominant Browns roster, and then I think Hero immediately just completely disproved that. Multiple Super Bowls once again, Madden 23. I think at this point, given what he's done over the past two cycles, you have to give him his flowers. You have to give him his respect and put him as the pretty clear number one. CMAS versus myself is interesting. I strongly disagree. I would put this Vikings roster pretty clear above the Bears, even with Justin Fields. But even with that said, I do have CMAS at number 2. Not just because I think he's, more consistent season to season than I am, but Hero and CMAS are both uniquely bad matchups for me over Better League history. Like, I am something like 1-10 against Hero all time, and my one win was our first ever game. I've lost something like, 8, 9, 10 straight games against Hero over the course of Madden's 21, 22, 23, so that's bad. Gotta flip the narrative there. And then CMAS tends to beat me as well. I'm a bit more successful against him than I am against Hero, but still, CMAS kind of, I wouldn't say owns me, but it definitely, has the head-to-head advantage in that regard. So that honestly was the main reason why I put CMAS above me. I kind of have it as a bit of a coin flip between us in terms of number 2, but I gave him his due respect in terms of regular season consistency and in terms of our specific matchup, which does not typically bode well for me. And then Gamble, you're definitely right. This is the third cycle now that I've been in a division with him, and like sometimes he comes out and he just lights me up, plays super, super well, looks like a playoff contender, and then sometimes he comes out and throws 6-7 picks. Like, it really just depends on the game with him. It's very kind of odd, in my opinion, how up and down he is. Jahmyr Gibbs, I completely forgot about him. That's going to be a fun piece with Gamble. I think Gamble sometimes throws the ball too much for his own good, especially when he drafts an AI wide receiver. Shout out to Adonis Morrison. But I do think that Jahmyr Gibbs, at least for the first couple seasons, that'll be kind of a fun piece and a fun weapon for him to deal with. But yeah, I feel pretty good about the way that I and Lucky and the league had it set up. And then, Morty, we'll see. Now, maybe Hero takes a step back, or maybe CMAS has a truly dominant regular season and is able to take it from Hero. I do not think the Hero is going to win this division all 6-7 seasons. I would like to hope that I'm able to win it once. I definitely think that CMAS will win it at least once. So we shall see. Anything else, or should we move on?
I'm good.
Just another Jordan Love believer.
Yeah, Slayer won though. It's a big deal.
It is a big deal. You should know this. He just took you to a Super Bowl. Well, you took him to a Super Bowl. Jonathan Taylor took him to a Super Bowl. We move on now to the AFC South. Again, another kind of sneaky fun division here. It is Steelers, Tennessee Titans with an average of 1.62, Kings, Texans 2.27, Kooks, Colts 2.96, and then Byron's Jacksonville Jaguars 3.08. Once again, we all have different standings here. I had Titans, Texans, Jags, Colts in that order. Well, I should say we all had Steele finishing number 1. And I'm honestly surprised he wasn't a bit more of a consensus number 1 than he is. But all of our 2 through 4 is different. I believe, Morty, go ahead. You can go first on this one.
So, just overall, once again, coming from outside in, I feel like Steele usually starts cycles pretty strong. He'll wheel and deal a bit. He'll turn that team into something he can work with. I'm sure he's getting ready to pound Derrick Henry pretty hard, lean on his really good players. And there's no roster in this division that's like significantly more elite than any of the other teams. So I do feel like this one will be, whoever can best maximize the pieces that they have. Obviously with the Colts, and is it Kook, right? I think it'll be the Richardson show. I think he's got some quarterback development in his mind. Hopefully Jonathan Taylor stays around. I think that's a good core there. But there's some weaknesses all around, but I think it'll be more based around quarterback development. I do think the Texans are not a sneaky good roster, but they got some youth and some talent there. I'm not sure what King has planned for them, but I could see him just pounding that rock pretty good, but I'm not sure to what degree it's going to kind of keep them towards the top of the division. I think the defense is pretty leaky, and the Jags probably have the best weapons overall, to be honest. But I don't even remember which user is the Jags again.
Byron.
Who?
Byron.
Oh, Byron. I have no idea who that is. I have no idea who Byron is. don't know who this is.
Fair.
No.
He's been around for a little bit, but he's always been quiet in the chat.
Okay, yeah, I recognize the name. Maybe he was the Niners at one point. I don't know. I recognize the name, but yeah, I think based on like name recognition, I was just like, I feel like he's not going to compete much. Sorry. But yeah, I think this once again early cycle, somewhat balanced teams, and Byron having the best team, but kind of lesser known user, at least for myself. I think Steele will kind of wrestle this one away. He's got some quality pieces around. It's not completely devoid, and I think he'll put enough together and compete out of the division as well, enough to kind of keep him up top here.
I'll give my thoughts real quick, just to kind of like change up the ordering here. For me, like the way Lucky was just describing my division, that was kind of my opinion of this division. Like I felt really, really good about my 1 through 4. Like Steele number 1, I don't think that's particularly controversial. He's been the most solid user of the 4 easily over the past couple cycles. I think he has kind of a level that none of the other 3 can reach, and I respect his consistency. I respect, even though I don't know if he's necessarily a Super Bowl contender going into this cycle, I compared to the rest of the division, I respect him and have to kind of give him his flowers as my pretty clear number 1. King with the Houston Texans, Dameon Pierce, I think that'll be a lot of fun. Obviously, I think his cycle-to-cycle viability depends a lot on his ability to quickly figure out the running game, and I think this is a Madden where he'll be able to do that, and more importantly, I think this is a roster where he'll be able to do that. I like his chances there. I have him in number 2. Byron, I mean, I just like... This was less of like, I don't know, I feel mean saying this. This was less of like a pro Byron thing, me having him at 3, and more of an anti-Kook. Kook is just like the most up and down. Like I sometimes he just like doesn't care, goes like literally 0-17, 1-16. He'll occasionally show flashes. He's usually good for a playoff appearance once a cycle, although as I say that, I'm not sure if he made the playoffs in Madden 23, but before that he was. We have not heard from Kook 1 iota in the chat. Same, I guess, to a certain degree with Byron, but I just had Byron with that Jaguars roster slightly above the Colts. I do also think I filled this out back when it looked like Jonathan Taylor was being shipped off to the Dolphins or whoever else, and now with the knowledge that Jonathan Taylor is here, and he is a Indianapolis Colt, it looks like, for Madden 24, maybe I would change this, but despite that, I feel pretty good about my ordering. And I do want to give a quick shout out to Dan. Dan was saying, like, oh, I'll catch this in my morning commute, et cetera, et cetera. He's here. He's getting active. Preseason tournament semifinalist coup.
Yeah,
Ooh! Okay, Dan's shutting me up. Lucky, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think for me, it was 1 and 2, and then 3 and 4. I think Steele... I think I very quickly, if I'm remembering this, I very quickly clicked Steele, and I thought, wait a second, I kind of like King. I feel like I've always been a little higher on King than a lot of the general consensus on him might be. I've been in a division a couple times with him, I think, at this point, and every time he's just a really good competitor, and he seems to turn it up at the right times. So I've always been a little bit higher on King, so it gave me pause for sure. Ultimately, I went with Steele. He's a champ. He's a pretty consistent user, and I ultimately, after thinking about it, I'd probably guess he wins the division at least 5 times in this cycle. But I definitely had to give it a little bit of a pause and give some time to King, because I am a little bit of a King truther. I believe that he could go on around any one of these years, and it wouldn't surprise me. So that's the top 2. Bottom 2 were very interchangeable for me, kind of like what we alluded to before. When you have 2 users who don't talk much in chat and are neither really bad nor really good, they kind of tend to fade into all the other stuff that we have going on within this league. Like, there's so much stuff that we talk about, both Madden-related and un-Madden-related, that unless people are bringing up their own exploits, it's kind of hard to know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I feel like both Kook and Byron tend to fall into that category of users that I'm just kind of like, I think they're solid. I don't think they're bad, but I also don't know that much about them. And so I find it almost interesting that these are probably the 2 users I would say this for most in the entire league. So I find it interesting that they would fall into the same division. Because I honestly have no idea. Like, I view both of them as probably like 5 to 9 win users on any given season. Maybe Kook more like 6 to 9, Byron 5 to 8. I don't know. It's so tough for me to rank them. And so those two guys, for me personally, I think I gave the edge to Kook almost entirely because of Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor. The Colts were pretty high on my rankings up until as like with you, until the Jonathan Taylor stuff came out. But yeah, that's kind of how I'm feeling about this conference. Top two were easy for me. Bottom two were easy for me. It was mostly just the orders of those two things within themselves that I had to consider.
Yeah, Byron, Kook, and then Monk, I would say, are the three users who, like, I don't know shit about them going to the cycle, and not a lot would surprise me, really, in any direction as far as the range of outcomes. Dan saying they are relevant for being irrelevant. Shots! Moving on now to Lucky's division, the NFC South. Again, another really fun one, in my opinion, as I pull up my thing here. We have the league consensus here to the left, of course. Dan's Bucks, I think unsurprisingly, at number one with an average of 1.73. Then Lucky's Saints, 2.19. Ben's Falcons, 2.42. And then Tim's Panthers, way down at the bottom. Surprises me a little bit, even though I agreed in terms of my own rankings. Way down at the bottom at 3.65. Lucky, I'm going to let you, of course, your division, I'm going to let you speak on this first. You completely disrespected yourself, which I don't like to see that hurts me. But what are your general thoughts on this division, on your division going into this first season?
So I've been thinking for a little bit about how I wanted to phrase this. I think over the course of the cycle, I think over the course of the cycle, we are likely to look back at me as the number 2 user in the cycle, both based off team building and gameplay. I feel pretty confident about that. Dan was fairly easy for me to put number 1. All respect to Dan, I do think he needs to. I think that this is kind of a prove it cycle for Dan. He was at one point almost a clear cut best user in the league. Like at his peak with the Jags and the Pats, he was on a phenomenal run, and almost everybody would have said, "Oh man, I don't want to have to face Dan right now." But it's been a little bit of time since then. He knows this. It's been a little bit of time since then, and I think we are entering a bit of a prove it cycle for Dan to come back and show us that he can still be that user on a consistent season-to-season basis. I think even if he doesn't necessarily reach that level, I still put him above myself. I still put him above Ben. I still put him above Tim. He is still a great user. But I think he knows this. He needs to get back to that point. As far as the next 3 users, Ben has fallen off. He's washed. Tim hasn't done a whole lot. I think Tim beat me once. I haven't played Tim a lot, so when I say he beat me once, I think that's like once out of like the 3 or 4 times we played. So I fully respect that he is a solid user. I think that I think a lot of the times his success in Madden has come from either having easy mode or just other really well-built teams, which is honestly a compliment in its own right. Like, team building is half the game here. As far as this first season, the part that I considered how I was going to do this, I'm not going to be here for the first 6 to 7 weeks of the season. I contemplated, should I do my rankings based off what I believe would happen if I was here, or should I do something? It feels a little bit like insider trading. Or should I do my rankings based off of what I know is actually going to happen? And what I know is actually going to happen is that I'm likely to start the season with 6 or 7 losses. I need to stop taking trips in September. This is the second straight year I've done this, and I hate that I have done this to myself again. But it is a thing that has happened. So that's, I will say, is why I put myself at the bottom. I think if I was going to be here for the full season, I likely would have ranked myself higher. But that was the thing I kind of had to grapple with.
Where would you have ranked yourself, number 2 or number 3?
Number 2.
Love that.
I firmly believe I am the number 2 user in this. I think Ben is not the user he once was. I by no means think it'll be a cakewalk. I would guess over the cycle, Ben and I will win 60 to 65% of those games. So by no means is it going to be like some dog walking or anything? But Ben fell off, and I'm here for it.
Morty, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that, a lot of degrees. With Dan being up top, I think that's not sneaky good, but pretty good roster overall. Sorry. But yeah, other than quarterback, I think it's in a really good spot for some future talent. With the Saints, I think I did a cough.
Bless
the
you.
mute button? Water went down the wrong pipe. Take over.
Want me to talk? Gotcha. Okay, so as far as my opinions on this division here, yeah, Dan, I had him as the pretty decisive number one. That's not to say again that I think he's going to win the division every year, because I don't think that, frankly. But as far as like forcing me to pick a order for this one season, yeah, I would give Dan the slight edge, especially because I know he's been in the lab. And I kind of agree with what you were saying in terms of this being a pivot cycle for Dan. I don't think, and this is purely speaking on my own standing, so maybe this is not true for the rest of the league, but I used to fear Dan to such a degree where like I would rather play damn near anyone else in the league than him in his peak, Madden 20, and then a period of time in Madden 22 where, Norman Fletcher and company were really cooking. I don't necessarily feel that way anymore. Like, he feels like another solid user that, like, he can beat me, I can beat him, and neither would be particularly surprising, right? I think that's kind of, like, where he's been the last cycle, and I would like to, because, I obviously love Dan, I would love to see him take that step back into elite status, and I just don't think we've quite seen that over the last few seasons of Madden football. So we'll see whether he's able to do that. Yeah, I forgot. Like I knew you were taking a trip. I forgot about that when I was doing the rankings. So yes, I would have had you down below if I knew that. But I would have you as the pretty clear number 2 if you were here for the whole season. I think Ben has really taken a few steps back as far as user play goes. And frankly, I would like to see more toxicity out of him as far as gameplay goes. We know Ben, when he was at his peak, when he was in Super Bowls competing for rings, he was talking that shit. It didn't matter who he was playing. Now he seems too deferential, too respectful. I need old toxic Ben back. Once he does that, I think this is going to be a 3-man race. And then
he got married and he lost his edge. We'll just call it like it is.
We'll call it like it is. Thank you. And Tim, I struggle to put it in a nicer way, so I'm just going to say I think he was an easy mode merchant the last couple cycles. I do not have him finishing particularly high, of course, in this division. I just think without the benefits of easy mode, without the benefits of a crazy roster like he had with those Chiefs, I don't love it. I don't love it from Tim's perspective. I do think he'll knock off, the other 3 guys on occasion. Like, it's not quite like the Wozy thing, because he definitely has more of a chance within this division than Wozy does within his, but it's a similar dynamic to me where, in terms of, like, I could see him, occasionally taking a game off of the other 3 users, but I think his chances of winning the division are near 0, honestly. I don't see it happening. Morty, hope you're doing okay. How you feeling about this division?
Yeah, I'm alive. Watch out for those wasabi chips, kids. The wasabi chips, watch out. Yeah, back to what you're saying, and as I was listening to you, I definitely agreed. Yeah, I remember fearing Dan a lot. His Jags and Patriots days were pretty dominant. I think he's still got it in him. But yeah, I just think his roster is in a sneaky good place other than QB for most of it. And for you, Lucky, yeah, I figured you figured something out. You still got like Kamara and some quality pieces there. I was kind of less familiar with Ben being that washed, but it sounds like it's he stuck around for the reboot, right?
Me, yeah.
Or what about Ben?
Ben was here the whole time.
Okay, all right, but yeah, so I kind of trust what you guys are saying. He didn't kind of do much during the reboot as well, but yeah, I feel like, for the most part, he's got a young team that he can kind of make more waves later in the cycle. But for now, I do think it's kind of like a slotted at third based on the other two rosters all over. And, admittedly, Tim is like another guy kind of like Byron. I'm just generally unfamiliar with the specifics of their history in the league. He's got Bryce Young, right? So I think he'll have some quarterback development to be focused on. But that team's pretty good in other aspects, secondary, and still some good talent on that team. But it just not compared to the other users I'm more familiar with. Not sure will Tim. I don't have the confidence to put Tim up top there. I definitely think Dan is a user who well, similar to what I was saying about maybe the Steel, where, you'll very much work within the confines of what your team is. I do think he'll lead into his strengths quite significantly. He's got some great possession receivers, like Mike Evans and Godwin. I'm sure they're still beasts in their own regard. But I think he'll kind of make sure the ball goes in the right directions on that end. Lucky, I feel like hard for me to forget your reaction to getting the Saints on the draft day or team reveal day, and I definitely would have wanted to put you up there because I think you got not a great team, but a team that has some potential. But yeah, I wasn't sure where you were at mentally with it, so at least figured you'd be nipping at Dan's heels to a degree. That's all I got.
All I'll say, as far as the Saints go, is just wait till season 3. This team, it might be 1 or 2 years of looking a little bit rough around the edges, but things are going to take off season 3. You can write that down.
Love that. Just here to build a team that makes others say, why aren't you winning more with that team? Am I right?
Boom.
Boom. Moving on now to the AFC West, the second to last division before we get to our disappointing breakout and Super Bowl users here. Again, this is, I believe, the final tie here. We have the most dominant number 1 finish yet, Warren's LA Chargers with a 1.08, and then far down below, Troy, a.k.a. Monk, his Chiefs, 2.54, and then Phil and Samoan tied their Broncos and Raiders with 3.19. And this was the only tie where not only, obviously, were they tied in the averages, they got the exact same number of first, second, third, and fourth place votes. It broke out completely evenly between those two, which I find very interesting. I was kind of the odd man out here as far as the three of us. Lucky and Morty had Chargers, Chiefs, Raiders, Broncos in that order. I was giving Phil a bit more respect and Troy a bit less respect. Kind of flipping the two. We all had Simone at 3, Warren at 1. More to your divisions coming up. So we'll start with Lucky this time. How do you feel about this one?
Yeah, I feel like one of the important things to shout out at the beginning when discussing this division is that looking at the way the consensus falls, it might be easy to draw the conclusion that there's 1 good user and 3 bad users.
Yeah.
But what I remember, especially on Team Reveal Day, was thinking this is a division with 4 legitimate playoff contenders. I think some of them have been up and down, but for every single one of them, their ceiling is absolutely like the 5th seed. The only reason I don't say division winners because I think Warren is that high above them, but that's not a knock on them. That's just because that's where Warren is. Warren has earned the benefit of the doubt with what we saw this past cycle, that he deserves to be the consensus number 1. But even in there, like between Troy, Samo, and Phil, all of them are really solid users. Phil, it's been a couple years. I think this past cycle, he started making that push back towards playoff relevancy season over season. He had a couple down years, but he started looking a lot more solid last year. Samoan, I think a big part of it was probably the reboot, but he was my division partner, and every time we were able to get a game in, which admittedly was not often, they were always really close games. He obviously knows what he's doing. I haven't seen a lot of him from within this cycle, or from within Better League, but from what I've heard about him outside of Better League, it's that is the user you can expect to see when he's here and locked in. And I've heard the same things about Troy, that they're just obviously these are users between Troy and Simone, they're users that haven't quite been in Better League as much as the others. But from everything I've heard about them, they're really solid, and that I think we can count on the floor for this division being like 8, maybe bare minimum 7, but 8 to 9 wins every year, which is pretty fascinating. And honestly, I think I am very fascinated by this division. I think a lot of people are sleeping on just how competitive 2 through 4 are going to be.
Again, just kind of change up the ordering. I'll speak now, and then we'll get to Morty. Yeah, Warren, you have to give his flowers. Put him at number 1. I agree there, and I also see why he was, as consensus of a number 1 as he was. It's really interesting the 2 through 4 thing. Excuse me. I think of all 32 users in this league, I probably know the least about Troy, and I, for some reason, thought he was like a basement user when I filled this out, which is why I put him 4th. And then I watched a little bit of his game against Alan just now, and I heard the way he was talking about Madde, very intelligently. He clearly knows the game just from an X's and O's perspective. So I kind of feel dumb for putting him 4th, honestly, especially with that Chiefs roster. 92 overall, a lot of pieces he'll be able to use with the new AP system. If I could do this all over again, I would probably honestly shift him up to 2nd and then bump, Phil and Simone down to 3rd and 4th respectively. But can't do that, so we'll keep him at 4th. As far as Phil goes, of all 4 users in here, he is, or I should say of all 3, because Warren's kind of in his own category. He's the user who, I can most see having a blow-up season where he ends up being 3-14, but he's also the one who would least surprise me if he goes on a Super Bowl run. I think he has kind of the most variance season to season of any of the 3 users, whereas I think Simone and Troy are just going to be, solid, on the edge of / wildcard contenders every year. I respect Phil greatly. He has his own kind of unique play style, and he runs it very effectively, in my opinion. It can be very frustrating to stop when he's on. And, of course, that is a Brighton brother. Shout out to him. So I gave him the number 2 spot. As far as Simone goes, obviously he is, and a lot of people don't know this / forget this, he is a multiple-time Super Bowl champion, has a couple rings from Madden 19. Obviously, Madden 19 is a long time ago. We'll see whether that sort of greatness can carry over now into Madden 23, but I'll look forward to see what he can do with Las Vegas, and I think this is going to be a really, even though I think Warren will probably win this division every year, I think this is going to be, kind of like you said, Lucky, a very, very solid, very frisky division where you can see any of these 4 guys going on a run into playoffs were they to make it. Morty, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely agree with a lot of what you guys were saying. I do Warren up there at the top of the division for most years. He's got not only the quarterback, but a great team surrounding him. He's just talent all over the board. In terms of Kansas City and Monk, right? Definitely.
Yeah.
I would say I played him in the preseason tournament, and my defense felt absolutely helpless. Mahomes was just impossible to stop. I think he really had a good grasp of the mechanics of the game and just what he could kind of get away with that Mahomes magic. It just felt like he was just fitting into the tightest of windows and able to kind of take advantage of just the true power of a top tier quarterback. And kind of somewhat similar but different compared to the Chargers. He's got the quarterback, but not necessarily the team around him. But I still think that puts him in a better position than where the Raiders and Broncos are at. It's funny when I think about Samoan, because I do still think about his dominant time as the Cardinals. It kind of seems like it was yesterday in a weird way. So I do kind of have him up there, especially over Phil at this point. But, that roster is not in the greatest of spot. He's got pieces to work with, but compared to a superstar quarterback like Warren and Troy Monk have in Kansas City, I feel like he slots right in the 3rd. I know Phil's got the potential to be there, and I'm not sure how his reboot cycle went, but honestly, most of it's based around I played him in the preseason tournament, and I absolutely dominated him. And he said it was lag. I'm sure it was all lag because I'm terrible. But Yeah, I was just surprised how well things went in my favor that game. Some Madden BS, but I do feel like I was putting things together and kind of iced them up. So it was probably more recency bias as I was doing this. I'm just remembering my one and only encounter with Phil. But he's also got a good team, some good pieces. I think he'll be there to compete. He always is. He's always the Broncos. But in terms of how this division stacks out, it's hard to not put the two great quarterbacks at the top. And at the top of those two goes the quarterback with the really, really, really good team around him. So that's kind of how it shakes out on my end.
I'm just now realizing that I spelled Madden wrong in my stream title, so that's cool. We're off to a good start here from Madden 24. Moving on now, again, like you both said, and like I was saying during my part, really, really fun division. I look forward to seeing how this breaks out every year, especially in the kind of the 2 through 4 area. Moving on now to the final division. This is Morty's division, so we'll obviously get his takes first, but not before I read the average placements here. First off, it is the defending Super Bowl champion and the newly crowned preseason champion, almost as prestigious of a title there, the preseason champion. Alan Seahawks with a 1.38, and then following him, Morty's Niners, the Morty Niners, 2.15, P-Town's Cardinals, 2.58, and then Nick's LA Rams, 3.88. We all have Alan first, we all have Nick last. Maybe a little bit of belief, maybe a little bit of blind belief, we'll see, in Morty's 49ers putting him second. Lucky and Morty had the same ordering, putting P-Town second, Morty third. Morty, this is your division. What are your thoughts?
I gotta admit, especially after seeing Alan, he won the Super Bowl in the last cycle reboot, right? And
Yep.
seeing him dominate. I don't know if he dominated the whole tournament, but at least that last game, I felt like he had it.
Well, yeah, I mean, he raided his Minnesota Vikings, and let's just say it went poorly for him. But yeah, I mean, he did really well.
Yeah. I might have to watch that tape because I find I do feel like I'm kind of worried about him. Geno Smith, it's gonna be rough, but yeah, I just think he's got a good grasp of the game. Like, he obviously had a good grasp of it last cycle, and I'm sure many cycles before then. But it's hard to. I think he's just. I watched that first half of preseason tourney final, and I just think he was really efficient. Troy or Warrior Monk, whatever we're going with for him is. I feel like he was just mentioning how efficient he was in terms of the passing game. At one point, he was like 15 for 16, and I just think that kind of, he kind of slow it down, make sure he's making the right reads, throwing to the open guys, no panic throws. I'm somebody who is prone to a lot of panicky offense, so I feel like he's instantly a step above me there. I for sure put P-Town second above me because, I don't even know where I should be coming back into Madden after such a long break. But I do think P-Town is a player, and I think back to, was it just last cycle? He won the Super Bowl season 1, right? I think he's a player who kind of picks up the game quickly and, maybe to a degree fades down the stretch of the cycle. But early on, I think he puts that time and energy into kind of really getting a real firm grasp of how the game works. And even with lesser talent, like, remember, it was the Texans team that he brought to the Super Bowl and won. I think he just has a good grasp of how the game works. And I've been in, was in a division with him before, and I do feel like early on he had my number, and then once I kind of learned what he had going on, I feel like I was able to kind of maybe get a few wins off of him, and it kind of somewhat became more of an even stalemate overall. But earlier on, I do feel like kind of always has my number. With me and the Niners, like, it's kind of a weird spot. It's such a great team. Like, I'm just not overly hyped on Brock Purdy, so I feel like I got nothing to complain about because they're pretty stacked elsewhere. The whole Trey Lance situation was kind of rough because I was looking forward to developing him, and seeing what I could make of it. And that's really what I enjoy out of Madden these days, is especially like the opportunity to develop a QB like that with some raw potential there. So that was a little rough. Purdy's kind of a little difficult. Definitely an adjustment, but I do think I could easily see myself somehow getting second, just based on my roster kind of pushing me further than maybe Debo and Kittle and McCaffrey just slip a bunch of tackles, and I can get past P-Town that way. But I feel like that's my greatest hope. Once again, I'm somewhat unfamiliar with the specifics of Nick and the Rams. It's a terrible roster, and I know Nick's not the greatest player. So unfortunately, those combination of those two things, I do think slots him right in at fourth. But excited to get going. I'm excited to see to what degree I can compete against Allen. I don't believe we play until like almost nearly back to back later in the season. So I have some time to kind of get used to the game and see what I can make of it before I have to play him. So hopefully by then we figure some stuff out. But I do think he'll be in the driver's seat for this division for sure.
Yeah, Lucky, isn't it like weeks 15 and 17 or something where the Seahawks and Niners play this year? It's like really weird. Yeah.
Yeah, it's dumb.
Super, super odd. Lucky, what are your thoughts on this division?
Yeah, I think I'm going to echo a lot of what Morty had to say. Warren, Allen, my bad. They both end with EN, and they have repeating consonants. But Allen, obviously, reigning Super Bowl champ, coming off another preseason championship. I don't know how many back-to-back champs we have off the top of my head in BL, but if you let me count it, I will count it right now and add him to the list. But yeah, Allen has proven that he deserves to be in that conversation of contender any given year. And I think that the Seahawks are one of the best day one rosters, mostly for Madden, maybe not in real life, but I think in Madden they have so many weapons. They have so much speed. And I think that this is a really good team to start day one with. I'm probably going to be a P-Town believer for a very long time, because the only time he's ever let me down is when he doesn't show up, which actually ends up being a lot. But when he shows up, I will always believe that he has a chance to win any game that he's in. It doesn't matter who he's playing. I do think he is one of the better talents in the league. And I think the only thing stopping P-Town is his consistency in being available. And we all have stuff going on in life, so this isn't a commentary on that. But I do believe that regardless of he proved, he won a Super Bowl last year with the Texans in season 1. So he's proven that just having a bad team to start is not going to be the reason why he doesn't win. And Kyler Murray is more than enough to run an offense with, and you can make other things work if you have a weapon like that. So I do think P-Town from day one, if he locks in, plays 17 games, and is here for the playoffs, I pick him to go on a run just as much as I would anybody else. Morty needs time. I don't think you can just jump back into a game like Madden willy-nilly and expect everything to come back to you. I don't think I'm reinventing the wheel by saying that. I think that there is always going to be a learning curve, and season 1 probably isn't going to be it. But the Niners do have also a phenomenal team to start with. A lot of weapons on that defense. You got Debo, you got Christian McCaffrey. He'll figure out his QB situation. I'm personally of the belief that you either have an elite QB or you just run with somebody who's like 70 overall and you make it work. I don't think necessarily not having one of the top QBs is going to hold you back too much, so long as you know what you're doing. But I think he'll figure that out as he goes. And if there's one good thing I can say about Nick, is that he is the best divisional mate I think I've ever had. He is always available. He is like literally just one of the best people to talk to for like almost anything you have to talk to them about. And pretty much every time that you reach out to him, you know that you're going to get a response super quick, and it's going to be one of the most positive interactions that you've had that day. So I don't really care to even get into the Madden of it all. I miss having Nick in my division because he's just a phenomenal BL brother, and that's what's important to me. So that's my NFC West.
We all love Nick for sure. Yeah, Allen, obviously, to back defending champs. I'm willing to give him that designation as well. I have him as a pretty clear number one right now. Like you said, Morty. Even though I do have him number two, it might take some time before he really kind of gets the 49ers churning the way he wants them to. And then P-Town, honestly, like the main reason I have Morty above P-Town is just because of the sheer gulf in roster talent. I just do not respect that Cardinals roster one bit. And yes, he did win a Super Bowl with the Texans, of course. Exactly 1 cycle ago at this point, season 1 of Madden 23 was able to win with the Texans. I don't know and obviously don't think that Lightning is going to strike twice here. I have him at third, but, just based purely on, I guess, form and experience, if you will, going into Madden 24, I suppose you would have to give P-Town the slight edge over Morty. I just think that 49ers roster is going to be too much. And I did like, what I saw out of Morty in the preseason tournament. I liked what I saw. It kind of seemed like he was, it was like riding a bike, if you will. It kind of seemed like he hit the ground running. So that was good to see from that perspective. Nick, yeah, I mean, he's fourth in this division, but yeah, love Nick. Like you said, even though I've never been in a division with him, super, super awesome guy. Miami brother, love talking to him. And if one day, if the stars were to align and Nick were to go on a playoff run, I would be so in his corner. You wouldn't even believe it. Oh my goodness. That'd be insane. But any final thoughts on this division before we get to the rest of our superlatives here?
Nope, I'm good.
Beautiful stuff. So moving on, and these are new graphics. Again, Samoan did create all these graphics, so make sure to give a shout out to him in the Slack. Maybe the Discord at some point, Alex, but the Slack for now. We have the disappointing users consensus, and you will see up there, I did have it only include users with multiple votes. There were a lot of fringe votes, a lot of outliers, and I just didn't want them all included on the graphics. So we have them there. You can see each Better League logo represents a vote. Steel has 6. He is, even though it says T1, he is the clear number 1 most disappointing user. Then Cody at 4, Phil at 3, and then we had a bunch of guys tied with 2. Lucky, P-Town, Matt, Samoan. I, for the life of me, am trying to pull up my vote, and I can't do it, and I don't remember who I voted for, so I'm gonna...
neither.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you two talk while
I
try to figure this out. Okay, well, this is great content here. Shout out to episode 37 of the BetterCast. I want to say I voted for... I wouldn't have voted for Steel because I haven't finished number 1.
So,
who did I vote for?
I can't tell you who I voted for off the top of my head, but I will say seeing Steel up top is fascinating, and I wonder how much of that comes down to the team that he ended up with. Because I don't think he's done anything. For starters, the division that he ended up with, I think we're going to see him win the division most of the time. So I find it odd that so many people think he's going to disappoint. I also think every time this comes up, we see people use different definitions for what they're actually voting for. For me personally, I took this as user, I think, is most likely to not live up to expectations, but for some people, I think the disappointing user might also just be like, they thought was, I don't know, maybe I'm talking around in circles and just ending up at the same place. But I do wonder how much the team that Steel ended up with is playing a part in this. Because I think at least with like Cody, you can look at maybe his life situation and think maybe he's not as locked in because he just got married and he's living life. He's been touching a lot of grass in the last year. But Steel, nothing's changed with Steel, except he has a shittier team than he did last year.
I'll just say real quick, me and Lucky both voted for P-Town, and then Morty voted for Chase.
I remember why I voted for P-Town.
I called it. I called it with Chase.
Yeah. No, Morty wins. Yeah, I absolutely voted for P-Town because I'm like, I don't know if he'll be there come week 1. But it ended up being Chase. Didn't see that one coming.
Yeah, I think I
could see. I kind of also see it as like, I mean, I suppose I was also thinking in terms of not necessarily who was going to be atop the division, but who I kind of felt would not be dominating as hard relative to maybe the team they got or the previous success they may have had. But I could see Steele being up there to a degree, just in regards to maybe he'll win that division, but maybe I feel like it's going to be mentioned at every podcast, but he may not be battle tested by the time he reaches the playoffs. And to what degree will that lead to success beyond regular season?
Morty knows
or
me
maybe
well.
those 6 users thought that he would like have a cycle where he wouldn't complain as much, and just felt like ultimately he wouldn't be able to live up to that, and they were probably proven right.
Morty knows me very well. The battle tested cliche is one I've been using for 8 Maddens now. Yeah.
Wait, the other one I liked is he's a force. He's a force.
Yes, he's a force. I remember saying that about Cloud back in Madden 17. Oh my goodness, time flies. Time flies. Yeah, I voted for P-Town because I think going from, in terms of first seasons of cycles, going from winning the Super Bowl with the Texans to then finishing third in the division behind Allen and Morty, I think would be pretty disappointing. And I don't see anyone else really falling off, if you will, to the same degree. Of course, the remaining ones, Steele, sure. I mean, I think he's going to win that division fairly comfortably. I don't think, even if he ends up losing the wild card round, I don't think that's, especially disappointing from him. Cody, maybe. I mean, we'll get to my thoughts on Cody here in a later slide, but I could definitely see, if Lamar Jackson finishes third in that division, that could be tough. Phil, again, I don't quite see it. Again, I feel like I'm kind of waffling here. I had P-Town for the reasons I described, and you all can see what the rest of the league had here. So moving on now to the breakout user consensus, and I can say for this one, I had Cam, Morty had Jesse, Lucky had Troy, and Troy is number 1 here, as you can see up there, with 6 votes, Byron at number 2, and Lucky the only user to get multiple disappointing user and breakout user votes, which I find interesting. That means the league doesn't know what you're going to do this season, Lucky, which I think is kind of cool. I think that's kind of cool, honestly. And then you have Matt, Jesse, King, Wozy tied for 4th. I will say, as far as why I said Cam, and it looks like I was the only one to say Cam. Again, this is going purely off of my own personal experiences with him, playing him twice in lab games. I think he low-key already has a really good scheme for this Madden. I think the biggest question, kind of like you said way back in his divisional preview, Lucky, is whether he cares enough, whether he stays locked in or whether he just kind of stops trying and just starts kind of fucking around mid-game, doing whatever he wants. But assuming we get a full season of locked-in Cam, whatever that may look like, I think he's going to have a really solid season. I really do. I have him making the playoffs, and I have him finishing, like I said, second in that division, which I think for him would constitute a breakout season, especially in a division that you could say runs 1 through 4 deep. Sorry, Morty, you had Jesse, of course, 1 of 2 votes. Of course, you had him winning the division, so I guess I can't really ask you for too much more than that, but why do you have him as your breakout user?
Yeah, in regards to Jesse as my regular user, you guys see that roster? Yeah,
I'm just tell me what that roster looks like in another week.
Yeah, true. But yeah, I just feel like he's how can you mess that one up? How can you mess that one up? I don't think it's
we'll see.
It's unmess upable, at least initially. But yeah, I don't know. I just kind of felt like if you resist the desire to blow up the roster, I feel like that team will carry you to at least be considered a breakout candidate. I'll put it that way. But I'm also not surprised to see Troy up there because once again, I played him in the playoffs, and everything is due to Mahomes just kind of made me feel hopeless on defense. And I definitely think maybe enough other people were watching some of the tourney and kind of noticed his Mahomes magic. So I'm not surprised to see him up top there. And the other guys, Byron, maybe he was doing some high quality things with the talent he's got in Jacksonville, but I could see most of the people on this list kind of checking out. Lucky, I feel like, kind of back to you in New Orleans, it's definitely flying under the radar to a degree. I do think you'll, trip aside, I think you'll come out flying at some point. But I could see most of this list checking out.
Yeah,
Lucky you and
I'll
Troy.
yeah, I'll say I kind of mentioned like a lot of people have different definitions, and I think one of the different definitions of how we want to actually vote for things like this, and I think one of the difficult things about a league like this and doing these votes is that after playing with somebody for 5 cycles, yes, people improve and people get a little bit worse, but like for the most part, I know who everybody is. And so it's difficult for me to all of a sudden be like, all right, this person showed me that all of a sudden they're going to be so significantly better that I'm going to call them the breakout user, or that this person showed cracks, so I know they're going to be disappointing. But for me, this one was so easy because Troy fits the definition to a T. He's relatively new to the league. He was here once, so we've seen he is a former BL playoff user. He made the playoffs with the Dolphins in I think 22.
Yes.
So it's not like he's never been here before. But as we've kind of proven on this podcast, a lot of people don't necessarily know who he is. And I felt like he fit the definition to a T of a breakout user. I think a lot of people give it just 2 or 3 seasons are going to know who Troy is, and myself included. I still am just kind of going off what I've heard from other users who have been in other leagues with him. But I think a lot of people are going to find out who Troy is, and this was one of the easier votes for me throughout the history of doing breakout user, disappointing user for every any year that we might have done this. It felt very easy for me to go with Troy for this one.
Easy for you, easy for 5 other people. He is the number 1 here in terms of the breakout user consensus. Again, we have Byron, Lucky, Matt, Jesse, King, Wozy, also all receiving multiple votes. And I am dumb for not mentioning this before. 27 submissions we got for this poll, and
Love that.
big shout out to the whole league. I mean, that's you'll get that response rate any day, and appreciate y'all. And it also shows how hyped you are for Madden 24. Maybe in late November we'll finally get started. We'll see. Moving on now to the final slide here, the Super Bowl consensus, and oh my god, did we have a consensus here? Warren with 12. Count them, 12 votes here, which makes sense. I mean, he was probably, you would have to say, the best user of Madden 23, made 4 straight Super Bowls, won 2, lost 2, and he's probably, if you were to write anyone at least into the Super Bowl, you would probably have to say him. And then we had Austin and Cody and Dehudi with 3, 3, and 2 each. Again, good luck, Wozy. We see what you're going up against here. We can also, and thank you, Simone, for adding this at the last minute after I asked for it last minute. You can also see our 3 votes. Myself and Morty both had Cody's Baltimore Ravens taking it. Lucky has Austin's Cincinnati Bengals. Lucky as the outlier between us 3. I'll have you speak first. Why do you have the 9-time champ winning? I feel dumb for asking.
When you put it that way, he's the 9-time champ. I think I picked him to win season 1 last year as well. I'm just he's Austin. He knows the game. He's good at it. I'm gonna ride with my guy. I don't really feel like I need to have much more analysis than that. It's just kind of a gut feeling, but I like the team. I like the fit. I think he's here to play, like he always is. I think it's going to be a good cycle, and I think it's hilarious just seeing this Warren plus the AFC North.
Yeah, that's tough. Morty, you and I have the Baltimore Ravens. Why do you have the Baltimore Ravens?
Yeah, well, I mean, in terms of I had him third in the division, Cody, so doesn't really make too much sense. But like I said, I did also mention I do see all 3 of those AFC Northers getting into the playoffs, and even if it's through the wild card, I think by the end of the season, Cody will have kind of perfected whatever he wants to do with Lamar. I think he'll hit a hot streak by the time late season, playoff time. I think he'll be rounding into form and that team how he wants it. And I do think Lamar will carry him. Having Lamar last cycle when I did, I get a small taste of what that potential could be. And I would love to see Cody kind of take him to the promised land. I kind of always knew, myself with Lamar, I wasn't probably the greatest of users in terms of truly taking advantage of his playmaking ability in terms of the mobility, staying calm in the pocket, really just like dodging defenders behind the line of scrimmage. And I think to a degree, Cody can bring Lamar to the not. I know little Alex didn't necessarily win anything with Lamar when he had him in Washington, but I do think Cody could take it to the next level in terms of that, like, just dominant run. Because I know little Alex was dominant with him, even though it didn't ultimately turn into a Super Bowl win. But I think Cody's got that potential for sure.
Yeah, I mean, my rationale here was super simple. Super simple. I mean, Cody plus Lamar Jackson, I think, is just a combination that I'm not sure if the league's ready for. We obviously saw, after, as Cody will constantly bring up in the chat, after Cody winning a ring in each of Madden's 20, 21, and 22, we saw him fail to win a ring Madden 23. He was obviously touching a lot of grass, got married again. Congrats to him. And I think it's just time, right? I think it's time for him to kind of return back to the elite status, prove why he is, once again, one of the greatest users of the league history, and not only take that stacked division with Austin Hootie, but take the Super Bowl with him as well. I think it's time. It just feels like a year where Cody is going to get it done. But as you can see, obviously, lucky Morty and I all had, Bengals, Ravens respectfully. The league very strongly believes that Warren's going to win it all, and you can't really disagree with that rationale. Warren, obviously, the best and most consistent user of Madden 23, and, there's good reason to think he'll carry that in Madden 24. It looks like he's just as locked in now as he was for the entirety of Madden 23, so no doubt in my mind that he'll be a force as well. Of course, now, we get to our kind of closing statements that we do every BetterCast. Morty, I always let you start out here. What do you want to say to the league as we go into our, 8th cycle together as a league?
Yeah, well, it's crazy to hear it's been that long, and it was awesome to have Better League Seattle and kind of get to meet a lot of the guys. It had been quite a while. That was awesome. It's also great to be back. I did feel like a break was needed for myself. I do think there was part of me that felt like, in terms of Madden, I had playing forever, and I'd carved a lot of grooves. I felt like I was still trying to run the scheme I had in like Madden 18, and it was hard for me to just like not find that reset. So I do think it was trying to find a hard reset. Probably going to fall right back in the same mistake-prone offensive game plan, but we'll see. But ultimately, in terms of my closing statement, I'll go back to the usual two things I say in my closing statement here. Is that, like, relax. Madden has introduced so many new things that are untested and will be new to us as a league. And there's just no chance we'll have a rule for everything that a lot of things will be unpredictable. We'll have to create rules, so like, we're all making it up as we go for the most part. So, when the admin team is behind on something because, EA screwed us over in this and that way, like, just understand we all want the best for the league. And put it on my former admin hat here, because I know it can be tough behind the scenes when EA is throwing you curveballs and then you got, a bunch of guys like looking at you as if it's your fault. So, relax, give the admin time to adjust for those things that will inherently just pop up and we'll have to kind of struggle through. I mean, I would love to get through a clean cycle. Ideally, never ever again have the whole league brick, but I do think, there will be some adjustment for everybody for a lot of new things, and I'm hoping to run smooth overall. That was my first thing. My second thing is game schedule is a perfect, flawless system. If everyone follows game schedule, there is no degree of failure. Things will come up. If you just communicate, game schedule will lead us to the promised land. Game schedule, people. Game schedule. Thank you. This has been Marty.
No, yes, thank you, Morty. Lucky, what do you have to say? Hard to top that, but what do you have to say?
I'll just say, it's something I feel like I like to reiterate often. Everybody here is here for a different reason. All of those reasons are valid. Maybe you're here competing for Super Bowls. Maybe you're here to hang out with your friends. Maybe you're here to build the best team. Every single one of those is a good reason to be here. Just be active, participate, be a part of the group, and people won't care what your reasons are for being here or what you get the most satisfaction out of. In that vein, shout out to High Council, to the admin team, to all of Better League. I really love the rule changes that we've made this year to open up team building. I think that will do so much to make us, to allow us to build the teams that we want to build. I'm really excited to see what happens this cycle from a team building perspective. I'm really excited to see what happens this cycle from an AI perspective. I think that a lot of people don't realize just how fun it can be to embrace having drafted players that you carry with throughout the cycle. And I really hope more people embrace exactly what that can mean. I feel like we got a taste of it with all the effort we put in to bring new AI players over when the league bricked to our reboot league. And I just want to say, everybody, this cycle could be one of those ones that we look back on as just the one that kind of like redefined what a better league cycle can be. And I'm just really excited to see what all these changes that we've made, what they result in.
Yeah, this is, I mean, you put it very well. Yeah, this is a cycle of change. We are, changing to a whole different chat interface with Discord, going from Slack to Discord. We're on Neon now. We've got the AP system. We're changing our draft class strength. We're doing like all these different, both small and like massive paradigm shifts within the league. And I guess like my one main message to the people is like, give each other grace, give each other love as we all kind of work our way through this. It is a lot of changes, which can be overwhelming for a lot of people. Even the most tuned in Madden players, may find some things that, confuse them, or maybe they didn't like fully optimize. So just like give each other grace as we all, continue to figure these things out. There are not 32 Warrens in the league where like they know every little thing up and down, left and right about Madden. So yeah, give each other grace as we figure that out. And shout out once again to my Better League Seattle brothers. It was great to have you up here. I enjoyed after flying to Miami, Chicago, Grand Rapids. I enjoyed having y'all over here, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as me, Lucky, and Morty all did. So thank you all so much for that. And thank you all so much for listening in here. We had, of course, it is almost 1:30 Eastern. The live viewership wasn't quite what it usually is, but I'm sure we'll have people listen in tomorrow and the following days. I know we had Dan, Alan, obviously Lucky was in the chat. Justin was in here at one point. Let me see, Hero was in here. So big shout out to all of y'all, and let's have a great cycle, and let's have a great kind of rest of our existence here as a league. I continue to be very, very grateful for this group of guys, and the Madden for me comes secondary to the brotherhood we all have. So really appreciate you all for all that. Along with, as always, Lucky and Morty, I am your humble host, Connor Rice. Thank you all so much for listening. This will go up on YouTube pretty soon. Peace.